Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Via Alpina trail that I did earlier this summer across the Alps. If you haven't had an opportunity, you can take a look at some of my other videos where I documented every stage throughout the hike so you could follow along and to see what each stage was like. For those people that are unfamiliar with the Via Alpina Red Trail, it starts in Trieste, Italy, on the Slovenian border. It crosses 8 countries and it eventually finishes at the Royal Palace of Monaco. It traverses the whole mountain range of the Alps, and I chose to take the green route across Switzerland to shorten up because I'm a United States citizen and I only have 90 days to do this hike. So in this video we're going to talk about kind of logistics and some of the things that I was surprised about in the trail. How long it took me, camping, food resupply, and things I didn't know. And that's all going to be covered in this video right here. So the first thing I want to talk about is GPS. And on the viaalpina.org website, the GPS tracks are a mess. I think that whoever designed this trail, whenever they designed the trail for the GPSs, they just kind of had a GPS that updated their location every 10 minutes. And unfortunately, with doing that, it then put straight lines around everything. So I had a hard time figuring out where the trail was. And so I used Maps.me and kind of built the trail as wayward markings, the towns you're supposed to pass through, and all that good stuff, assuming that the trail was going to be well marked and I would see Via Alpina markers along the way. When in all actuality, that was incorrect. There were no wayward markings of the trail when I started hiking. It wasn't until I got to the Austrian-Italian border on the Corniche High Route that it actually felt like I was on a trail and I could put my phone down and didn't have to do route finding, because the Corniche High Route is a very famous trail and it's well marked, and it's trail 403. So there was a lot more route finding and time spent on the phone trying to figure out if I was on the right track, which wasted a lot of battery life in my phone. Which could be problematic for people that don't have a charging device like an external charging block like I did. So it is something you need to be concerned about, but you just need to pick your GPS according to what you think works best for you. I use Maps.me. Everybody on the website said use Komoot. And so my hiker friend Cracker downloaded Komoot and paid the premium service, and it was very horrible. It was hard to understand. And so then I went and I got Hiker with 2 eyes, and that app was also pretty crap. And these were all because they were sourced from the original GPS tracks. Like I said, I think that whoever hiked this trail had their GPS signal on every 10 minutes. So it was only locating their location every 10 minutes, and in between those 10 minutes it's just going to draw a straight line. So it's very confusing, and without knowing that, it could be a setup for failure. It's definitely different than any other trail that I've walked, where it's very well marked and I can just feel comfortable hiking and not have to worry about, am I on trail? Am I going to end up at a Via Ferrata here in a moment? I specifically remember a day in Triglav National Park where I ended up at a Via Ferrata, and at the top of the Via Ferrata there were many placards of deaths that had occurred on that Via Ferrata, and it was down like an avalanche chute and it wasn't safe. But I had gone so far at that point, the backtrack would have been excess of 20 kilometers. So I just said, well, I think I could go down that. And I made it, obviously. But this is the problem with this trail, is that, you know, on a U.S. trail, there's never a point where you would end up at Via Ferratas. It's a safe environment to hike in. They're very groomed trails, where Europe isn't. So really, you have to be good with route finding to do this trail, period. I started this trail on May 25th in Trieste, and I finished the trail on August 3rd in Monaco at the Royal Palace. It took me 69 days to do the trail with a total of only 3 rest days, which is rather quick, but I was limited on time. Being a foreigner, my visa only allows me 90 days to explore Europe. And that's why I took the green trail across Switzerland to shorten up the time. Since finishing this trail, the Via Alpina has adopted the green route to become the official route of the Via Alpina Red Trail across Switzerland, which means that the southern border section around the Italy and Switzerland border is no longer the official route. The green route is now the route. And the green trail was probably one of the most enjoyable parts of this adventure for me. It was kind of a relaxing stage. I mean, it was the Via Alpina Red Trail is pretty full on and adventurous, and the green route was a break from that. So I really thoroughly enjoyed the green route alternate. I think I would love to go back and to do the red trail along the Italian border, the sections and stages that I missed. That's one of my biggest regrets of the trail, was not doing the entirety of the red trail. But if you only have so much time, you only have so much time, so you have to pick and choose your priorities, which worked out well for me since they ended up adopting the green trail as the red trail later on anyways. So let's talk regrets of the trail. I regret not being a European citizen and being able to spend more time doing this trail. I think that the trail is similar to a lot of other long trails where it goes through some really amazing, beautiful places, and the trail doesn't necessarily go to those amazing, beautiful places. Sometimes the trail diverts and goes away from them. So I wish I had more time so I could have allocated for side adventures in Slovenia and the Dolomites and more in Switzerland. So going into this trail, I'd already previously done a significant amount of hiking in Europe. So the European style hiking trails was not a surprise to me, being able to go into huts and to refuge and towns and little villages almost every day. That was not a surprise to me. I think that the biggest surprise was that there was very few places where I really felt like I was remotely out there. Even in the high altitude mountains, civilization was always kind of an earshot away. And because of that, I didn't really feel like I was super remote. That was definitely a surprise to me, and different than any of the other long trails that I've done. In the States, for example, they're a lot more remote, and you could be hundreds and hundreds of miles or kilometers away from civilization, whereas in Europe that's really not the case. Another surprise was even though civilization was always kind of an earshot from the trail, or pretty close at all times, there were a few sections where carrying multiple days of food was kind of required. On the Cornish High Route, that was definitely an area where there wasn't stores that you could purchase food in these little towns, because most of the places that you were stopping, or the stage stops, were refuge or huts, and they didn't have something for you to purchase for food. You can always ask them for small bits and pieces that you can buy, but it's never going to be cost effective. So the Cornish High Route and then the Piedmont section of Italy, I was required to carry lots of food multiple days at a time. I mean, at that time, I was moving rather quickly, so it was not hard for me to cover long distance, for example, as much as 50 kilometers per day, to make the food carries a little bit easier, because the In the Piedmont section, there was alimentaries, and they have very limited supply. If they have risotto, that's a bonus. If they don't have risotto, you pretty much don't have a meal. You're going to be eating snacks and stuff like that. If money is no object for you, then this really isn't an issue, but I'm a very cheap thru hiker, and I tried to do this hike as cheap as possible, staying in the least amount of huts, buying the least amount of meals in restaurants, and really just trying to immerse myself within nature amongst the Alps and spending the least amount of money possible while doing it. So another thing I was really concerned about prior to getting to Europe was the whole camping situation. I mean, you're going through 8 countries, and every country is different. Every park is different. Every region is different. And so you kind of have to be on top of that. I was super stressed out about that going into the trail, and I think that I overthought it realistically. My experiences of being a thru hiker, I've been very crafty and capable of finding places to sleep, whether it be in a city situation or in a mountain situation. And the Via Alpina was no different, except for the fact that civilization was always close. So you had to be a little bit more crafty about the camping spots, and going off trail and getting away out of sight of any place was completely possible in every country. And in the countries that are a little bit tighter on this type of stuff, I was able to talk to farmers and to stay on their property. There is literally farmhouses everywhere. Some are open, some aren't. And you can ask for permission to stay on their property. What's the worst they're going to say? No? I'm going to do a complete separate video on camping alone, so please stay tuned for that. Another concern of mine was the language barrier. And I do speak Spanish, not fluently, but I do speak some Spanish and a bit of other languages. So that was very helpful for me. But if you were a person that was only a one language speaking person, it's totally easy to get by. I never found it to be that much of a hindrance to not speak the language. I think that there was always someone around that was able to speak English or the language that I speak or you speak to help you out. So that wasn't really too much of an issue. But there was some moments, in small villages where there was only elderly people, where there was no younger person to speak any English whatsoever. Those were difficult moments, and you had to be good at charades and kind of using your hands in a way to describe what you wanted. So let's talk about water. So when I first decided to do this trail and started getting into the research aspect of it, I stumbled across viaalpina.org, which had plethora of information. Unfortunately, some of it was a bit outdated, and I did find some useful information. But one thing that kind of stood out to me was that there was a lack of water, or at least that's what a lot of the comments had said in some of the earlier sections. And as you can see, we walked through a lot of snow, and when snow melts, it turns into water. So with a proper filtering device or iodine drops or even bleach, you can purify water. And the only country that really had issues with water was Slovenia, because of the porous limestone rock that most of the country is. A lot of that water seeps through and goes into all the underground rivers and cave systems that they have in Slovenia, which is very popular. The Jamas, so you should definitely check those out while you're in Slovenia. Once through Slovenia, water became very easy. Every town has a fountain. Every village has a fountain. Every farm has running water for their livestock. So in the end, it really was something that you don't really need to worry too much about. I had capabilities of carrying 3 liters of water, and I don't think I ever filled those except for Slovenia. Cost was my next concern. After joining the Facebook page Via Alpina Community and doing all my research, I had read that people could spend as excess of $10,000 on this hike. Now, I'm a hiker trash thru hiker, and I don't have $10,000 to throw at an adventure like this. So I really was concerned with the financial aspects of this. I was able to secure flights to Europe beforehand, and then I secured a flight a little late in the game, which cost me some money, and I will do a separate video on cost alone. But with that being said, this trail can be done cheap. I think you'll be surprised at the final number of what I spent after 69 days of traveling in foreign countries. So stay tuned for that video. If you wanted to do this trail cheaply, if you were strategic about it and spent less time in the more expensive countries, it could certainly be done for even cheaper. The expensive countries are as follows: Monaco being number 1, Switzerland being number 2, and Liechtenstein is in the same conversation because they use the same currency. Austria would be number 3, 4th would be France, 5th would be Germany, and then Slovenia and Italy are very cheap countries, and I would put those in the same category. So choosing to spend less nights in the expensive countries and choosing to resupply or spend nights in more of the cheaper countries could make this hike a lot more cost efficient. I think that I did very well on this. However, looking back at the numbers, I spent too many nights in Austria in accommodations and France as well, and that really drove the cost of my thru hike up. Because this trail navigates around borders, it could be done a lot more cost efficiently, and you could just resupply in the cheaper countries opposed to the expensive countries. Meaning if you were on the Switzerland and Italian border, you should be doing the resupply in Italy opposed to Switzerland because it would be more cost effective. Other hikers, will you even see any? Well, this is a very sparse thru hiking trail. A lot of people choose to do this trail in sections over many years. A lot of people don't have the time to pull off this thru hike in one go. So you will encounter some people. For myself, I started with one friend and I met up with one friend along the way. And then we ran into one thru hiker. Only one thru hiker. The entire 1,300 miles, 2,200 kilometers ran into one thru hiker. Now, there are parts of the trail where it will coincide and run concurrent with other trails, such as the GTA or the Via Alta, and a lot of the GR routes in France will cross paths with the Via Alpina, but meeting actual Via Alpina hikers is few and far between. So if you are looking for a social trail, I will sadly tell you this is not your trail. What was my favorite part? You know, because it goes through 8 countries, I'm just going to kind of talk about countries individually. And so my 2 favorite countries, without a doubt, were Slovenia and Switzerland. And I thought Slovenia was really rugged, and it was cheap, and the people were nice, and it just had all of the characteristics of why I would love to go back and travel more in that country. Switzerland was also another country that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I think that had a lot to do with like how civilized and peaceful and amazingly beautiful, clean, colorful, crime-free, lots of flowers everywhere, very well maintained, beautiful streets, and efficient that country is. And you know, the abundance of alpcasses. And if you don't know what an alpcassa is, it's basically a farmer shop that they sell their own products on trail. And you're not going to get a fresher yogurt in Switzerland than from an alpcassa. So that was another reason that I really, really enjoyed Switzerland. I think also because Switzerland, I chose to do the green trail, which I believe wholeheartedly is an easier trail than the red trail. It made it a little bit more enjoyable and a little bit better on the body. So my body had some time to heal in these periods. A close third was Italy. Now, Italy was a country that I haven't really explored much of. I had the opportunity of backpacking all through Europe, and I just have passed through northern Italy, so I didn't really get a chance to experience Italy and what it has to offer. So I spent roughly 20 days, 20 nights in Italy, and I really enjoyed the country, the people, and the food, the diversity of the mountains, and the architecture as well. How difficult was this trail? Now, every trail has its ups and downs, and this one is definitely no different. Unfortunately, there's a lot of ups and downs, or maybe fortunately, depending on your physicality levels, but there was significant amount of elevation every day, and it took some getting used to, but once your body gets used to it, then it's really no issue. The real big difference between this trail and any other long trails that I've experienced or hiked so far in my hiking career is that there's really no down days on this trail. You know, the Pacific Crest Trail or any other long trails in the United States of America does have flat sections or flatter sections. And this trail really doesn't. It just always seems like whether you're climbing up to take a pass and then you're going right back down the other side to get into a valley so you can resupply, and then returning right back up to the elevation that you were just at earlier that day. So it's just a constant up and down battle. So with that being said, I think it's probably the hardest trail that I have ever done. And it was really rewarding. It was extremely rewarding to achieve these passes on a daily basis. I do think that some were harder than others. And as you can see here, there's a Via Ferrata, which was a little bit difficult day coming down into there, but it was worth it, 100% worth it. It's been a highlight trail for me on my hiking career, and I would recommend it to anybody that is looking for a mountain hiking adventure. Now, I believe that timing has a lot to do with how more difficult you can make it for yourself. And because I chose to start early in a heavy snow month of May, the beginning of the trail was a lot more mountaineering and route finding than I probably anticipated on doing. And one of my hiking partners dropped out because this wasn't really what he signed up for, and it was a little bit more difficult than he wanted, and there was more mountaineering than what he intended on doing on this trail. So just be aware of that prior to getting into an adventure like this, that European trails are different than United States trails. United States trails, we're very fortunate to have very groomed trails. You know, we don't have Via Ferratas in the US on a regular trail. That's not a trail, that's climbing. But in Europe, it seems to be more common, and, you know, the trails aren't groomed. There's more rocks. They're going to be tougher on your shoes. They're going to be tougher on your feet. They'll be very tough on your knees. And these are all things that should be considered when looking at a trail like this one. Okay, thanks for sticking along this far if you've stuck it out. So now I'm basically going to talk about what I would do different, if anything. Would I do anything different on this trail? One of the things I probably would have done, which one of my hiking partners had, which was the Alpine Hut Pass. And I think having this, it gives you a lot of discounts at the Alpine huts that are part of the Alpine Club Association. And it would give you as much as 50% discount in a lot of places. So that's something that I probably would consider for the next time if I were ever to do this hike again. Another thing that I would have done differently, like I said earlier, is I would have started a little bit later in the hiking year, and I would have started in the early week or first couple weeks of June. I think that would have allowed for a lot of the snow to melt and make the trail a little bit easier to pass. And probably one of the last things I would have done differently is, you know, I really regret not hiking the Red Trail in Switzerland. So I probably would go back and I would hike that section, because everything that was on the border for this trail was gorgeous. And the highlights for me were anything that were near the Italian border. And I gotta imagine that the border of Switzerland and Italy is pretty incredible. I mean, there's the highest peaks of both countries reside on that southern border of Switzerland. So I think I kind of missed out in that aspect, but I really enjoyed the green route. So I'm glad that I accomplished that. And I guess I will just have to go back and do the remaining red route to finish up the remainder of that adventure. So that's a quick little trail overview. Like I had mentioned earlier in the video, I plan on doing more detailed videos on cost, camping, food resupply, the gear that I used that I liked, and the gear that I used that I didn't like. We'll go over all that as well. So if you're interested in that, subscribe and you'll get notified as I post these videos. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If you want to see more content like this on this trail and other long distance trails throughout the world, please subscribe and it'll get you updated as I post. This is Cav saying keep calm and hike on, y'all. Trail's done.